Hello guys. I do hope I find you well. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are watching us from today, depending on when you will watch this video, guys. I'm so excited coming to you. I'm so motivated. I'm so inspired by your support, by your love, and by all the questions that you bring through to us. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to support us, for continuing to love us, for continuing to want us to grow as a community, to want us to foster the culture of sharing experiences, sharing our stories, and sharing means and ways of how best we can make life in the diaspora bearable, livable, successful, and full of growth, for our community, for our people, guys. So guys, as you can see from the caption I put in there to say, leaving an employer for another, leaving a job for another, how best can we make it graceful? How can we make it professional? So guys, today I'm going to share a bit of my story. I'm sure if you do follow me, if you've been following my story, my journey, you all know I moved from Zimbabwe to the UK on a care visa. But you do know that when I was in Zimbabwe, I was doing something else. I was in a different job altogether. So I had also worked for other organizations as well. And so I think I do have a bit of a story that I can share with all of you of how I left that job for this one and how I left the employer that I came with for my new employer at the minute and how best we can make it graceful. Why did I choose to share about this today is because a lot of people have been coming to me and saying, Flo, I'm in this situation. I want to leave my employer, or I found a job elsewhere. I really like that job. How can I handle this situation, leaving and things like that? So I thought maybe I'll come here and we can talk about it. We can share. And guys, as you all know, I love to say this, to say by sharing, it doesn't mean we know everything. By sharing, it doesn't mean we have it all. By sharing, it doesn't mean we are perfect. There are other things that we have learned. There are mistakes that we learned from. And the whole idea is for everybody to learn from those situations. The only difference is the fact that we do come with our stories. We do come with our experiences so that everybody can then draw lessons from them. Everybody can improve their own situation, guys. So how did I handle everything? What's my what can I say? What's my transition strategy like? So it was a bit different when I left Zimbabwe for the UK. When I left the employer that I was working for the UK, one of the things that I always say is, as an employee, it's always important to show loyalty to whoever that you're working for at that point in time. It's very important. You don't want to come across as somebody who is not loyal. You don't want to come across as somebody who doesn't care. So I think for me, until the day that I got my visa, I kept on going to work. I kept on doing everything. I tried by all means to do everything by the book. I kept on showing up for work. And I do remember when I did get my visa, that day I was actually at work and it was my husband who went to the visa application center to collect our visas, and he actually had to ring me. I was at work. I couldn't travel with him because we didn't live in the same city as the visa application center. So I was actually at work that day when he actually told me that our visas were out. So obviously it was entirely up to me to decide when and how I was going to tell my employer. One of the things that I was sure about is we wanted to leave as soon as possible. Why? Partly it was because the employer this end was waiting for us. The other thing also is we were just wanting to go. So how did I handle that? Guys, for those that are joining us, we are talking about how to handle leaving a job, leaving one employer for another, leaving one job for another. How can you make it graceful? How can you make it professional? And we are not saying all the things that we're saying here are the right things or the correct things, but I'm just sharing my experience and my thought process when I handle such things. So what did I do? That night I knew definitely the next day I had to tell my my manager to say, okay, I'm leaving this job. One of the things that I always do prioritize is I never want my employer to hear about me leaving from other people. I want them to be the first to know before I tell other people. And if ever I have to tell other people, I make sure I'm just telling those people who are very close to me and who would know it's not for everybody's consumption because I haven't shared. I mean, it would come across, I don't know how it would come across. That's why I think sometimes certain employers would actually like be frustrated with you or upset with you when they hear you're leaving. Why? Because sometimes they get to hear it off other people, off third parties. So a big welcome to you all, guys. Today we are talking about how can we handle leaving a job for another or leaving an employer for another. Guys, one of the things that I want to share with you is the fact that no employer wants to be left for whatever reasons. If anything, they will try by all means to keep you unless you're one of the bad ones. But I mean, no employer wants to be left. So it's always it's a bittersweet moment. But there are things that we can actually do that can make it bearable, make it graceful, make it professional, make it livable. So what did I do when I was leaving to Zimbabwe? I mean, I want to share two experiences: how I left my job in Zimbabwe for this job to the UK, and then how I switched from the employer that I came with to the employer that I work for now. So how did I? So I knew. Until my visa was out, I didn't even say it to my manager, say it to my employer, or talk about it with my colleagues. Why? One of the things was the fact that I wanted to make sure it's certain I'm leaving, it's certain I'm going before I can actually preempt things. And then next thing I'm not going, but I've actually highlighted to the person I'm working for to say I'm leaving. Why do I say that? It's because why I say always make sure you are leaving before you can tell your employer or before you can leave a job is the fact that if it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen, or if you end up not going, you can actually come across as somebody who is not loyal. I mean, no employer wants a person who is not loyal. Everybody wants somebody who is committed, somebody who is loyal, and someone that they can actually rely on. So if you've shown trace that you can leave anytime, you can leave any day, then obviously they cannot rely on you. So I made sure my visa was out and I made sure we were going. And I knew for us, we didn't have that much time to say we've got so many weeks or a month or whatever before we can go, because my employer at this end was actually waiting for me. So they were waiting for me and they wanted us to come together with other work colleagues so that training can commence when everybody's there. Because I mean, it does cost them money, it does cost them time when they have to train one person at a time. So we had to come like in groups and then training would commence. So it's one of the reasons why as soon as my visa was out, I had to leave for the UK. So what did I do? I drafted my resignation letter. I drafted it nicely, politely, professionally, and then I didn't send through the resignation letter to my manager. Why? This was out of, I mean, I'd worked for that organization for the longest. So it was out of like that mutual respect, mutual relationship. So the way I felt about breaking such news to my boss, partly I knew he would be like someone who would be happy for me. If things are going on right for me, he would always be happy for me, always celebrate with me. So I wanted to tell him first in person and then and in my resignation. Sometimes it's, yes, they do say hand in your resignation or write an email or write it a letter or anything. But I mean, sometimes you look at your relationship with your employer or you look at your relationship with your manager, and then that would determine how then you can break the news. So I showed up in the morning and then I knew I had to tell him. Why? Because I didn't want him hearing things off other people, just in case things would get to his ears through other people. It's good news. It was good news then. It's still good news. And I knew probably maybe I may be tempted to tell other people before him. So first thing in the morning, I went to him and I said, do you have a minute, sir? He said, yeah. Well, what's what? And I said, I don't know, but here's the situation. So I broke the news to him. Of course, he was sad I was leaving, but at the same time, he was happy for me that something that I really wanted was going on right with me. So then he said, well, you need to hand in your resignation letter. And I said, well, I have yet. So that's how it went. And then after that, what is it that I did? Because this was a very big organization, I had to go to each and every department clearing. So I don't know what happens with your department or what happens with your workplace, but that's the process I followed. I had to say to him, I'm leaving with immediate effect. I'm not going to have time to serve notice. So this would be my last day, and then my leave days and all other things would cover. So, well, he highlighted to me that you will be charged because you did not put in you didn't save your notice period. I was quite okay with that. So one of the things that I want to highlight is it's very, very important for us to read our contracts, to revisit our contracts constantly so that we know what's on the cards, especially when it comes across your mind to say, I want to leave this job or I want to look for other opportunities. Read your contract so that whatever steps that you're going to take are in line with your contract. Why do I emphasize on that? It's because sometimes it's when you get told you're not going to get benefits because you didn't serve your notice period, and then you'd go, that's so unfair, they're doing this to me. But sometimes it's important for you to read your contract. It's always in black and white in your contract, and when you know what you're entitled to, when you know what you can get or what you have to pay back to the employer beforehand, you can actually make that informed decision, and you can actually prepare yourself for that decision. So that was how I handled the whole Zimbabwean situation. I only had a day, and I went around clearing and making sure everything was in place. Everything that I had to return to company property and stuff like that had to go back to the employer. So these are channels. You don't just leave or just wake up or ring and say, I'm not coming back. Depending on the organization that you work for, but other people can do that. But I do feel if you're professional, if you're on this platform, we do expect you to show grace and to show professionalism. I've said it before to say no employer wants to be left. No manager wants their employee to leave. If anything, they would say, but we wanted you, why we'll give you this and that. But if you have made up your mind, if you know that's what you want, then they can't do anything about it. So fast forward, I came to the UK. I was so happy. My employer was really good to me. I mean, I always love to say this, to say there are good employers out there. There are professional employers out there. My welfare was well taken care of. Everything was in black and white. My contract, I got my contract when I was at home. Back in Zimbabwe, my contract was sent. I read it, which is one of the reasons why I decided to come with that employer, because I actually weighed in what was in my contract, and I liked what was in my contract. But I came here. But guys, I always say these things to say there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow. There's nothing wrong when you do see certain things, or when you do realize you want to pursue a certain path, and where you are at does not suit what you want. Always look for other options. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Of course, that employer will be gutted. They want you. They've taken the time to groom you. They've taken the time to train you. They've invested in you, to be quite honest. And besides, you can't be that bad. If you're on this platform, if you do come on this platform all the time, you can't be that bad. You are somehow you're valuable, and they would have loved for you to stay. But when it's time to go, it's time to go. When you want to grow, when you want certain things, definitely you can always get them elsewhere. But what is it that you can do before you decide to leave? What is it that you can do? I always encourage people to engage with your manager, engage with your organization, engage with your office. Because some of the things that we end up moving or switching jobs for can actually be fixed through conversation, can actually be fixed through dialoguing. I always say to people, you could say, I want to leave this employer, I found another employer, and yet you find yourself jumping from the frying pan straight into the fire. So always engage first. When you do engage, even in the future, when you decide to leave, at least that employer will cut you some slack and say, but such and such came to me and we spoke about these things earlier. It's unfortunate we couldn't address their needs, or it's unfortunate our organization couldn't meet maybe all the things that such and such requested for. But it's always important that you engage. If it's growth you're looking for, always when you do your appraisals, highlight those things to say, this is what I want, because they do ask you what your goals are, what's personal development plan, your own personal development plan. It's very, very important for you to highlight those things during your appraisals, or during, you can actually make an appointment with your manager and you discuss certain things that you're not happy with, or certain things that you would wish could be adjusted to suit what you want, if you like it there. So it's not every situation that you can say, I'm not liking such and such, or I'm not gelling in with my team, then I need to move jobs, because you could move and still face the same situations where you go. But suppose you're in that situation where you've made up your mind you want to leave, what is it that you can do to make it look professional, look graceful, feel graceful, and be graceful? It's not just about making it look graceful, but it's about it being graceful, smooth, and professional. So I'll share with you some of the things that I did. Again, the same thing that I say to you, to say, I'm that person who never wants other people to know first before my employer or my manager. No. Christopher was saying in the comments, my situation was different. I would love to hear your story, love. If you can share in the comments, you can put it in the comments. If you can't, I'll still come to the inbox and then you can share with us. But we are here to share our experiences. We're here to share about some of the things that we can do when it's time to leave, how we can make it graceful. Because I mean, we always talk, we preach professionalism on this platform, and we expect to see that, we expect to propagate that, we expect to, you know, to be people that are very civil, people that are very graceful in what we do. So what did I do? I knew my mind was set. I knew I wanted to join the NHS. I knew it ticked a certain boxes that I knew pretty well. My employer would not tick those boxes. Sometimes it's good to be rational, even in our demands, even in the things that we request. Sometimes always be in the shoes of your employer and say, if you were the employer, would you do this and this and this and this? Sometimes let's be reasonable with our demands. So I pretty well knew the things that I wanted, the pathway that I wanted for myself in the UK, that employer could not meet. But I knew if I joined the NHS, then somehow those would be met to a certain extent. So what is it that I did? I did the whole process, like my interview process and everything. I applied for my visa. And when my visa was out, again, I emphasized the importance of making sure you're certain you're going somewhere. Why? You don't want to start a conversation and then you end up not going. What it can do is you can come across as somebody who is not loyal. Also, it disrupts the team. If 1 minute they're expecting you to go and then you don't go, obviously your teammates will be gutted. Your teammates will feel let down when you do leave. It's unfortunate. These things do happen. But I always say, make sure that's where you're going before you can actually tell people, or before you can actually say to your employer, I'm leaving, or I want to save my notice. Because some employers, once you say that, they may not want you back in the team. They may have prepared, maybe put things in place for someone to replace you. And then what do you expect when you say, I want my job back? So always make sure you know you're going, you know. And by making sure, it's no disrespect to anybody. It's no disrespect to the organization, but you want to come across as somebody who is professional. You want it to be graceful. You want it to be amicable. So it's how you leave an organization, or how you separate from an organization or a company, also has got bearing, has got a reflection on you as a person. And also, guys, we should normalize taking the time to reflect how we have left organizations, how we have been leaving jobs, because sometimes when you look at that, it becomes a trend, and it's unfortunate. Sometimes it builds towards the character, your character. It becomes who you are, how you live. You know, so for me personally, I value how I live. I value how I disengage, and I always value relationships post separation relationships. I value them, because I mean, there is no way that you can go and work and then they will not ask for references of an organization that you've worked for. So I do value how I live. I do value those relationships, and I always try by all means to say, I want it to be amicable. I know I'm leaving. I know I've let everybody down. I know it does hurt. I know it does feel a certain way. I'm also hurt because you would have built relationships with the people that you're serving. You would have built relationships with your team, but when it's time to go, it's time to go. You can only do so much to make it a sweet separation. So what did I do? I made sure the employer knows before they can know or hear it from anybody else. Because I mean, it's exciting news, especially when you're joining an organization that you've always dreamed of joining. So you could, you know, get carried away and share with other people, and then it will get to your employer through other people. Be in their shoes. If they have to hear it of other people, how would they feel? So I made sure, once I was certain, okay, my visa is here, everything is above board, I had to let them know. How did I let them know? Things are a bit different in the UK. Things are a bit different in the organizations that we work. And I had not worked for that organization that long to say I build those relationships where I can say, I want to have a sit down with you and we can talk informally like that. So what did I do? I wrote a nice resignation letter and I send it through the email. But as soon as I send it to the HR, as soon as because there's structures in these organizations, there's systems in these organizations, there's systems in place, depending on the organization that you work for. But where I used to work, there's systems, there's a solid structure. So I sent my email, my resignation email to the HR department. How did I structure my resignation email? Obviously, I was letting them know I was leaving. I highlighted how I was going to save my notice because the employer wants to know. The employer wants to know, okay, are you saving your notice period or you are not saving, so that they will know what to do going forward. How much notice period are you covering? Is it being covered by your leave days, or you have to literally save the time period? So you have to highlight all of that in that resignation email or in that resignation letter. You don't want the back and forth that would come afterwards if you are not clear in your resignation letter. So always be clear of your intention to leave, when you want to start to save your notice, or when your notice period is ending. And I think those are the key things that you have to highlight in your resignation letter. And obviously, I mean, if you are on this platform, we always say, be kind and be cautious, be courteous. So one of the things that I did was to thank the organization for all that they had done for me. I've always said time and again, and I'll continuously say it, to say, I'm so grateful for the opportunity that they gave me. They will always be a part and parcel of my journey, my story. I wouldn't have been here had they not believed in me, had they not given me a chance. I say they gave me a chance because, I mean, they didn't know me enough. They didn't know what I would do or what I would offer, but they took the chance and said, let's give this woman a chance. And they gave me a chance and they changed my life. They changed everything about me. So I'm always grateful to them. I'm always indebted to them. They'll always be a part of my story. No wonder why I say I value post-separation relationships with organizations. That's how I am. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but for me, I do value that. It's so important to me. Why? Because I'm that person who always want to reflect back, always want to savor those moments to say, had this person not believed in me, I wouldn't be here. Had this person not decided to give me a chance, I wouldn't be where I am. So obviously in that resignation letter, I pointed out my intention to leave the organization. I pointed out the issue of my notice period. I also mentioned certain things that were certain agreements that were in my contract that meant if I were to leave them, then there were certain things to fulfill. I highlighted them in the resignation letter. I didn't want to be vague in that letter. I wanted to highlight the important things for them so that going forward they can know where I stand with them. I also thanked them. It's very, very important because, I mean, I'm so grateful for the chance. I'm indebted to them. They gave me this life that I have, so I am grateful. So obviously what happens, guys, nobody wants to be left. As soon as I had sent that resignation letter, I had to send an email to my manager, my immediate manager, because I knew as soon as the HR got my resignation, they'll be ringing my manager, ringing everybody. And I just wanted to make sure I've been courteous enough to have said in person, in as much as they were going to hear off the professional channels, off the official channels, but as a human being, I felt I owed them that. So I informed my immediate manager to say I've actually entered in my resignation, and also that I would be serving my notice. And I also thanked them for everything, because everything that I know they taught me, everything that made me work that long for them, it was because they were coaching me, they were teaching me, they were showing me, they were being patient with me. So I thanked them, of course, in that email. I also thanked other people that I had actually been privileged enough to work closely with them, be it through training, be it through, it just depends with who you've been in contact with and how you related. I also took the chance. I mean, our organization is that tight organization where you nearly know almost everybody. So I had to actually even write to the director to say thank you for everything that you've done for me, and I'll be leaving. I always do feel it says a lot about me as a person. It's not just about well, I've let them know, I've let HR know, and then they'll notify everybody. But I do value certain relationships. Like I said, guys, we are teaching each other how to be graceful, how to be professional when it's time to leave. What was at the back of my mind when I was doing all of that, or when I do that, what would be going on at the back of my mind is to say, I'm growing professionally. I'm building a professional portfolio as I go, as I work for different organizations. I'm building a professional image. You just never know when you would need those people. You just never know when you may need those people to vouch for you or to say something about you. So above everything, I value relationships, professional relationships, respectful relationships. That's just who I am. So it's something that I was taught, from way back, to say value relationships. So it's one of the things that I do try to maintain, that I do try to value and protect. So part and parcel of what was going on in the back of my mind is I knew they would be heartbroken, not because I'm the best, not because I've been the best that there is, but because I was working for them and I have to leave. So I just had to do my part. I know there's other beautiful people. There has been brilliant people to replace me, and I'm so happy for the organization. But again, it's when I reflect now, is I still do talk to that organization. I still do engage with that organization, because I mean, they are doing great work in the community. They are doing a great work in the industry. They've done much for people, especially my Zimbabwean people, African people. So I continue to talk about them. I continue to engage with them, and I'm not shy about it. I will continue to say they are a good employer. They've been good to me. So part and parcel of the reason why it's so easy for me to talk about them, it's so easy for me to constantly refer to them in my story, is because of the relationships that we had, the relationship that we still have. It's a respectful one, it's a cordial one, it's a professional one. So part and parcel of what I've learned through that is always keep it professional, always keep it cordial. By saying this, I know a lot of people will be going like, what if they are so bad? Yes, they could be bad, but do your part, do your own part. I'm going to read a comment. Christabel says, I told my superior that I was leaving in 2 months, and she said, wait, you hand it over when you are left with 1 month. Then I did that. They then took my salary away, saying it was a short notice. Oh, it's unfortunate. It's sad, but then you did your part. What I continue to say is, it's every situation is different, every employer is different. But do not let those bad traits change the person that you are, or alter the goodness that you have. And I always try to say, focus on the positives, especially if you're moving to another organization, a better organization, or a good organization, or somewhere where you love, right? You'd rather focus on that, because it makes you forget the bad experience. There are a lot of people out there experiencing bad things. There are a lot of people going through a lot. But how you carry yourself out of that situation, because one of the things that we want is, we don't want you to be bitter throughout your whole life. We don't want you to be bitter even when you go to your new workplace or to a new job and you're constantly referring to that bad experience. We want you to look forward. We want you to look ahead. We want you to continue spreading positivity. Probably you could be that learning curve for them, to say, it's not every separation where there has to be drama. Probably you could be that person that could actually make them reflect on how they handle separation. It goes both ways. So I'm just talking more about you as the employee. I'm not going to talk about what employers do or feel, because I've never been an employer. I don't know how they feel, right? So it's unfortunate when I left. In both instances, when I left, I never got a chance for a sit down, maybe exit interview. It's very, very important. I think if there's any employer who's going to watch this video, any maybe senior manager who's going to watch this video, when people do leave, it would be nice, it would be important, it would be a learning curve if maybe organizations could take the time to say, okay, we want to talk to you to find out why you are leaving. That way, maybe organizations can actually draw lessons, can actually maybe do certain things within their organizations to to fulfill maybe the needs of others as well. But it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I've never been afforded that chance, you know. But it's something that can actually highlight some of the things that Christabel has actually said. To say, well, she notified them, and then they said, and she said, and then eventually she didn't get her salary. It's unfortunate, Christabel. But maybe when we continue to talk about these things, maybe some employers can reflect, can take lessons, can draw lessons, and do better next time. That's just my only hope. But I'm more concerned about what you can do as a person, what you can do as the employee. So I've talked about like only saying you're leaving when you know for sure you're leaving, because you don't want to come across as somebody who is loyal. You don't want the animosity where people are not talking to you, you're not talking to them, because you've left and then you didn't leave. You didn't really leave. You left. You said you were leaving and you didn't leave, and then you're back, and then they don't know again when you're gonna leave. It's one of the things that I'm very, very worried, that I'm very particular about, to say, if I'm leaving, I have to leave. If I'm staying, I have to stay, and I have to show commitment. The second thing I've said is also make sure you know about your notice period. And one of the things that I want to say is notice period is not a chance for misdemeanor, for lack of professionalism, for all things. Where you can, when you say you're filling in your notice, be the best in that period. Try your best. I know we always show up every day and we want to give our best. We don't want anything to go wrong. So until the end, always strive to deliver the best. Be the best to your team. Be the best to the people that you serve. Be the best to the organization, so that you can continue talking about them in a positive light, and they will continue to miss you and talk about you in good light. One of the things that I said to my managers and people that I worked for everywhere that I have left, and my keynote say was, because of the working relationship, and maybe every time I'm moving from an organization, it's a form of like an upgrade, a transition into something better. So one of the things that I do love to say, and that I've always said wherever I left, is this will always be home, because that's where I started. This was my springboard for all the things that I know, and will always be home. And I do hope that when I do come back, I'll come back better and to offer better. And I still stand by that. And I still feel, if anything, everywhere else that I've worked, guys, I've had a good experience. I've learned a lot from those organizations. And it will be my wish one day to, whether on a full-time basis or on a consultative basis, to give back to those organizations, because I mean, they gave me all this that you see, all this that you now associate me with. I learned, I saw, I got the chance to absorb it from the organizations that believed in me and gave me the chance. So guys, I think I've said what I needed to say. I've said what I feel I would add around the question, to say, when do I tell the employer that I'm leaving? At what stage do I tell them? Is serving notice very important? Yes. One of the things that I've actually learned from what Christabel said in the comments, the fact that serving your notice is important, because what it does is it will make sure it's a chance for you to receive your full benefits. When you do save your notice, you do get your full benefits. So it's very, very important to factor that in as you transition from one organization to another. Always mention to say, I will have to save this organization this notice. I've always said, one thing that I've noticed, especially here in the UK, here in the diaspora, is the fact that when an organization says they want you, they mean it, they want you. They'll be willing to wait for you, because it's not like you save a notice for a year. At most, people do save their notice, I think, depending on how long you've worked for an organization, but some organizations it's 2 weeks, some organizations it's a month. So they will be willing to wait that long. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight as well, one of the things that I learned off the home office, was the fact that in as much as my visa for the other organization, or I don't know how I can put it, but my visa with the other organization was out, they clearly stated to say I would be given the time to save my notice with my former employer. So the fact that I had started the process, started engagement with a new company, would not stop me from serving my notice. They honor, they sort of honor that transition period. They sort of honor that engagement disengagement period. So it was quite okay on the home side of things. So guys, it's one of the things that I thought, well, I'll come in here and we can share together. Guys, continue to share our videos, continue to share with your friends, continue to encourage your friends to like and share, subscribe, follow, and always support. We are here just to bring awareness. We're just here to share our stories. We're just here to share our journey. Probably somebody could get help. Probably things could get better for our communities, for our for our people. And part and parcel of how we want to be known, or part and parcel of the reputation that we are trying to build through engagement, is to be known as people who are professional, to be known as people who are committed, to be known as people that are hardworking and, all things professional, all things successful, all things growth oriented. That's why we take the time, we take the effort to share these stories, to share our thoughts, to share our views on certain things, guys. I do wish you a lovely weekend, guys. And until next time, we'll see each other. We'll come here and reflect again. Thank you so much for your love. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Have a good day. Bye.